Anyway, I'm going to try to be quick so I have a lot of time for questions, but just very briefly, when I ran for the first time in 2002, I tried to make some promises that transcended sort of the normal issues of the day, because they change over time. So I wanted to give a sense of who I was and what I could be held accountable for. So I promised to be progressive, and I promised to be bold and not focus on my own self-perpetuation. And I think I've kept that promise. I am widely considered to be the most progressive member of the Pennsylvania legislature. It is not a high bar, I admit, but it is something I think I've earned. And in terms of being bold, I have taken on fights deliberately that no one else wanted to take on. I introduced the first marriage equality bill in Pennsylvania history, and when our county clerk briefly started giving marriage licenses before Obergefell to same-sex couples, and they could stay married even if a judge struck it down later, they were desperate to get married, and I had dozens of couples coming. I could marry people, and I married people in my backyard, in parking lots, in malls, wherever I can meet them, dozens of couples. When I introduced medical marijuana, I couldn't get a co-sponsor. Everyone said I was crazy. We passed that bill. I think it is the most important piece of social legislation in the last 30 years. Not only is it ameliorating suffering all across the state and saving lives, it is creating a whole new industry that's employing thousands of people and bringing hundreds of millions of dollars of tax dollars to our coffers and creating whole new businesses. I passed 3 human trafficking bills that turned us from one of the least progressive states in the nation to the most progressive states in the nation in dealing with that scourge. The first bill I passed was, the first policy of mine that became law, brought hybrid cars to the state fleet. We're trying to do that now with electric cars. There's a state fleet of 40,000 cars. That's really significant. I passed a bill giving pulse ox tests, requiring pulse ox tests for newborns, which is saving lives. And it's not just about passing legislation. I can talk about a whole litany of legislation that we've passed, but it's also about finding other creative ways to help the community. For example, we successfully sued to overturn the racist voter ID policy that was passed by the legislature. We successfully sued to have something called Act 192 overturned, which essentially said that if any municipality passed a gun ordinance, the NRA could sue them and get damages and council fees and everything like that. As a result of that, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and a lot of other municipalities have now passed what I believe are life-saving, common-sense gun ordinances. Whether it's environmental issues, women's rights. By the way, there's been 6 bills since I was elected that advance the rights of women specifically. 5 of those bills were mine, including some of the ones I've mentioned, and banning the shackling of pregnant women prisoners. And also, I spent a year of my life fighting to get EC in the ER, emergency contraception for rape victims in emergency rooms, which they weren't given previously, which again, I believe saved lives. So I'm running out of time, but let me just say this. I think anyone you elect would be a reasonable, reliable Democratic vote. But no one is doing what we're doing. I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing, but when you run for office, you sort of, it's part of the job. No one is doing what we're doing there. And I think there's real value in having that kind of force there to make a difference in the lives of the people that we represent. So with that, I think I'm out of time for my speech, but I'm happy to take any question on anything that anyone has. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, am I
No, you go ahead.
I'm sorry, yes.
Hi, my name's Lev. I was a big supporter of yours during the 2015 congressional race that you ran in. My question is this, because it seems like a lot of your pitch is based on your effectiveness as a legislature, but I think most folks in this room know that you've lost the respect of a tremendous number of your colleagues in the Senate, especially your women colleagues. And so my question, in addition to that, you've also been stripped of your posts on the Judiciary and Appropriations Committee. So my question is this, which is, why should voters in this district want to send someone to Harrisburg who's not going to be an effective legislator?
Well, that's a great question. And let me, I think it was a couple other people alluded to that. First of all, there are a number of people who called for me to resign. They did so before there was any due process. And every case is about an individual, but it has wider ramifications. Roe versus Wade was about a woman named Norma McCorvey who wanted to get an abortion. But that battle led to the rights of millions of women to have reproductive freedom. So every case matters more broadly than the people involved. So putting me aside, whether you like me or don't like me, we can't have a society where due process is not a thing, where people are just accused and they're canceled and they're never allowed to defend themselves. I always insisted on that I was innocent, and I always begged for due process. Finally, I got it. There was a law firm, major law firm, Eckert Siemens in Pennsylvania, that was appointed. They did a 9-month investigation, a $300,000 investigation. They interviewed absolutely everybody. Dozens of witnesses, went through thousands of pages of documents. And at the end of it, they exonerated me. I'm quoting here. We found no evidence of harassment. We talked to his employees, current and past. Every one of them said he was a pleasure to work for, and that they never saw him act inappropriately in any way. There were generalized rumors of misconduct. We could not substantiate any of them. That is what the report said. You can read it yourself. So, if I can finish. So, all I'm saying is, people did things before that. Now, I've not lost the respect of my colleagues. Most of the people who sign letters or whatever were pressured to do that, which is another troubling aspect of things that we have to sort of resolve. Governor Wolf was told, you're running for re-election. You can't be on the wrong side of this issue. People were saying, if you don't sign this letter, we're going to attack you, and they were telling the truth. But I just introduced a major piece of legislation with Senator Street, the adult use bill. He's not only a colleague, he's the vice chair of the Democratic Party. I had Governor Wolf come just a few weeks ago to the Chester County pipeline, which I've Mariner 2 East, which I've been very involved in, despite the fact it's not my district, just because I care about the issue. And just today, almost no bills that pass are Democratic bills in the legislature or run. That's why having the majority is good, right? Today, so there's been like 4 Democratic bills this session that have moved. Today, one of mine was one of them. We passed the Environmental Committee, my major recycling bill, which you'll read about. I'm still working with all of my colleagues, virtually all of my colleagues, with the exception of 1 or 2, still working with the governor's office. And throughout all of this, and we've been under siege for 2 years, and some of my employers are here, my family's here, and they know this. Despite that, we have still, if you take away every article about me relating to allegations, we're still in the news more than any other senator in Pennsylvania on issues. And I will continue to be that effective senator. I know we don't have much time, but yes.
So my name's Eric. I'm a committee person with the Haverford Township Democratic Committee. And I mean, despite how this meeting started, I would say everyone in this room probably agrees on 90 to 95% of the issues. And we've kind of got a big task ahead of us in 2020. We're trying to flip the state legislature. We're trying to get the White House back from Trump. And we're trying to re-elect Mary Gay Scanlon. So we've got a big task in front of us. Most of the people, with the exception of you and 4 other people, are not asking to be made the representative for the 17th Senate District. The rest of us are donating our time, and I'm going to be going out canvassing with people in my neighborhood, and I'm going to have to spend valuable time that I could be talking about issues, talking about your conduct. So there's a billion people out here today that have found other ways to advance the issues that we all care about. But why does it have to be you, is my question. Why you compared to the 4 other qualified people who came before us today?
Because, again, I'm sorry, I know I'm...
That's okay, you're out of time, but it's important.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a great question. And again, when you run for office, it's sort of awkward because you have to talk about how great you are, which I usually am reluctant to do. I like to let that speak for itself. But the fact is that the reason I've accomplished all of these things, by the way, 16 of my 18 years in the minority, which is unheard of. It's unheard of. The reason I've been able to do that is a combination of perseverance, skill, ability to do things, ability to debate, ability to speak, ability to understand issues, willingness to go. I just introduced a major bill banning fracking, because I traveled out west and spent time with people. And so I think that it matters. It's who the person is. It's not just, again, everyone would probably vote largely the same, but no one would do what we're doing. And I would say, if anyone asks you about my conduct, you can say, here's the website, read it for yourself. Because if someone is exonerated, that's really not their fault. If, that was a false accusation.
Okay, I think we have to end it.
I understand.
You got to answer the question,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you.
Thank you.